The Mako shark can be found on the eastern coast of the United States in the Atlantic Ocean. Its territory stretches from New England to Florida. In Florida, there is another Mako that is not found in the form of a shark, but as a roller coaster. Located at SeaWorld Orlando, Mako towers as the tallest roller coaster in Orlando. This video is going to be my full review on the coaster. Let's dive into it. Mako is the most recent addition to SeaWorld Orlando, opening in 2016. Come on, icebreaker. Manufactured by Bolliger & Mabillard or B&M, Mako is a hypercoaster. A hypercoaster is a roller coaster that stands between 200 and 299 feet tall. This was no challenge for B&M as they had made multiple hypercoasters in the past, including Diamondback at Kings Island, Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland, and the original hyper, Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. These older B&Ms have a lot of differences from Mako when it comes to their layout. After I talk about the ride experience, I will elaborate more on this concept. Mako is located in the Sea of Mysteries section of the park. While the queue has a majority cattle pen area, the plant work here is stunning. Everywhere you look, there are greens and pops of colors. You then go into a building that has some interacting games and learning areas about the Mako and other sharks. After this, you go up some stairs and you're in the nicely decorated station. It is themed to a shipwreck that is submerged underwater and taken over by nature. That is why there are panels on the ceiling representing water, and when returning to the station from the layout, it looks like a ship with a hole in it. The trains are the standard B&M trains. They seat 4 guests in a row and 7 rows for a total of 28 riders per train. So it actually has 1 less row than the typical B&M train, but it does not make that much of a difference. Mako can run up to 3 trains on its track. The trains also feature the typical hypercoaster restraint, the clamshell restraint, which is pretty much a lap bar just made special by B&M. There is one more thing I have to say before getting into the layout of Mako. That is operations. Usually when this comes up, it is negative, but my experience was the exact opposite. When I went to the park, the ride was practically a walk-on. Even with this, the crew was acting as if the line were 3 hours long. It was a calm environment getting settled into your seat. Then came the ride ops. They checked the train very fast, and we were out of the station before I even knew what was going on. So a big thumbs up to the ride operators of Mako. Alright, getting into the layout. Mako starts by exiting the station and entering a 200-foot tall lift hill. At the end of the lift, you drop back down 200 feet in the first drop. There is a little section of straight track at the bottom of the hill, which I found to be a little odd for a hypercoaster. You then enter a huge wave turn. The forces on this element are not insane, but you can feel it coming out of the element as the train pulls you back upright. You then enter a big camelback hill. This is, for me, the best spot of airtime on this ride, especially if you are in the back. You get some serious floater and maybe even some ejector depending on how tight your restraint is. You then enter a hammerhead turn, which is a 180-degree turn that is steeply banked. Again, there's not too much force on this element. After this, you enter a second camelback hill, which gives another dose of airtime. Well, it would give you that, but there are trim brakes on the hill. On all the rides I got, the trims kicked in hard too. This hill was a wasted opportunity in my eyes. You then enter the next hill, which is right outside of the wave turn. And after you crest the top, you bank to the right and turn under the wave turn. This part gives some good head chopper moments from the supports of the bigger turn. You then enter a small speed hill that gives a little bit of airtime, and then you rise up into the mid-course brake run. This mid-course brake run hits hard and slows the train a good amount. From here on out, you can feel the train struggling through the rest of the layout. This brake is located right next to the lift hill. Once the train passes this part of the layout, the next train is able to drop off the top of the lift hill. As you leave the brake, you bank and turn to the left under the lift hill. You then rise and bank about 90 degrees to the right. At this point, you have reached the main path. And man, does this part look very cool. The colors of the coaster pop with the scenery. By the way, the track is purple with teal supports. You swoop close to the main path at slow speeds and bank about 90 degrees to the left. You then dive down to the water and back up to the brakes. That water part could have had a splashdown or some other effect to make up for the slow ending. It is very picturesque, but it is not as fun as some of the other endings on other hypercoasters I've been on. Speaking of the other hypers, remember the ones I mentioned? Diamondback, Behemoth, and Apollo's Chariot are all older style B&Ms. Their layouts are very different from Mako's. Their layouts are very airtime heavy and do not feature a lot of fancy turns that Mako has. Mako is not like the older hypers, but more like the newer Giga coasters. A Giga coaster is one that stands from 300 to 399 feet tall. Some coasters like this are Fury 325 at Carowinds, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland, and Orion at Kings Island. These 3 coasters were built by B&M as well. Their layouts are very similar to Mako's. They have wave turns and other banking elements rather than a lot of airtime filled areas. So where does that put Mako? It's like a Giga coaster that did not make the height requirement. Personally, I like the Hypers to feature the airtime while the Gigas give the speed and gracefulness. With that being said, it still has some Hyper coaster signatures, especially that mid-course brake run. It hits pretty hard. That does make the ending feel very slow and sluggish. Imagine those last bank turns at full speed. It would be astonishing. Another similarity to Hypers would be my favorite seat. I prefer these types of coasters in the back row, and Mako is no exception. The airtime you get on that one airtime hill is way better in the back than in the front, and the ending does feel a little bit faster in the back as well. So compared to the other hypercoasters, it probably falls on the back burner for me. But when at this park, this coaster is a must ride. Alright, to wrap up this review of Mako with a pro and con list. I dislike the lack of airtime in the coaster and the sluggish ending. Along with this, the trims and mid-course brake run kick in pretty hard and you can feel the coaster slow down. However, the coaster does fit into the park very well with its theming, combined with the height, speed, and graceful turns that cannot be found anywhere else in the park. It is also a very pretty coaster. So for my final score for Mako at SeaWorld Orlando, I give it an 8 out of 10. This coaster is great, but it is lacking something. More airtime and fewer brakes would definitely make this coaster 100 times better. Also, maybe improving that sluggish ending would help the coaster tremendously. Thank you so much for watching this review of Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. Let me know what you think of this coaster in the comments below. If you liked it, please leave a like and consider subscribing as I plan on making more review videos like this in the future. Until then, peace out!